What it is, my TNO, Peace and Grease here, bringing you another WDIF, or Where Do I Find? And today we're talking Oxium. And if you're trying to build Vauban, then you need an absolute ton of Oxium. So where do you go? What do you run? Are there any tips and tricks? Answer to all those questions and what I'm going over today is yes, and let's get to it. Now, right from the opposite, let me say that I am not trying to say that any location is quote-unquote wrong or any location is quote-unquote right or that I have the only way. To the contrary, if you enjoy running IO, if you enjoy running that tile set, then I highly recommend that you run it. Because if you enjoy it, you're actually getting more out of it than just the Oxium. So run what you like, guys. I'm simply making suggestions based on what my personal experience is and maximizing those Oxium gains. So first and foremost, what is my favorite location for Oxium? Quite simply, my favorite location is going to be on Neptune. Moreover, there's a specific location, and before you guys turn off the video and go running to this location, there are a couple tricks. And let me get those tricks spelled out before you go running off to this location. But on Neptune, there is a capture mission called Galatea. As I said, it is a capture mission. But there are a couple, and it is level 27 to 29, but there are a couple tricks to this mission you need to be aware of, and I see people skimming past it or not mentioning it. And you need to know this before you jump into this mission. First and foremost, you can run this mission solo, or you can run it with a team. And I'll go over team symmetry in a minute. But when you go into this mission, you want to locate the capture target and down them. Do not cap them. Meaning, you want to locate the capture target, you want to down them, and you want to just leave them on the ground writhing. Don't cap them. Leave them there. Leave them on the ground. It's totally fine. You're not going to fail the mission. He's not going to just suddenly get up and run away. Just leave him on the ground. And then at that point, you just run around the rooms in a circle, a big circle, that are next to where the cap target is located, and just keep running around in the same circle over and over and over again. The other trick is you want enemies to trigger the alarm. As many alarms as enemies can trigger is ideal. Okay, you want them to trigger as many alarms as possible. So if you come across an enemy, he's triggering the alarm, let them trigger it. You want that. Now this is going to bring out bursas, but you should know how to deal with bursas pretty quickly and pretty easily by now. So that's fine. You want them to trigger that alarm, and you want to leave the cap target writhing on the ground. Just leave him there and run around the rooms that he's located, just over and over and over again in a big circle, non-stop. Now, what is your loadout? Now, you can run Galatea solo. Galatea is my favorite location to farm Oxium, and you can run this solo very easily, and I'll show you my loadout right now. What I recommend you take is a Necros, because Necros can tank a lot of content in the game of Warframe, believe it or not. And that's even without the Shield of Shadows loadout. You can actually build Necros to tank a lot of the content. Now, Necros does have a 50-ish% extra drop chance. Now, there was a time when Necros didn't work with Oxium Ospreys. He does, since Update 18, now work with Oxium Ospreys. The other thing I recommend is bringing a Smita Kavat. If you're going to take a Smita Kavat, I highly recommend you spend some time putting some Forma into it. Now, I think I have 3 or 4 Forma into my Smita. Make him a little bit tougher, make him last longer, so I don't have to continually pick him up. Now, a second frame of choice that you could take to Galatea is Hydroid. But there are a couple complications with Hydroid. The first of which is you must have the augment from the Syndicate. Now, this isn't that big of a deal. You can typically buy his augment pretty cheaply in trade chat. Pretty cheap and pretty easy. But he does give you an extra 100% drop chance. However, the second complication is timing. You must have enemies entangled in Hydroid's fourth, or his tentacle swarm, in order to get that extra drop. Alright, if you have an Oxium Osprey just wandering around off by itself, not entangled in Hydroid's fourth, you do not get that extra drop. You just don't get it. So they must be entangled in the tentacle swarm. So that's the other complication. The third frame of choice that I potentially would recommend is going to be Ivara. Now, Ivara's third ability, which is called Prowl, actually has 100% chance to drop extra loot. Now, the only complication or downside to this is you must be in Prowl in order to get this extra drop. So that's not really a downside, but it is kind of, if you really like to run around kind of Speedy Gonzalez style. But it is something to be aware of, and she does work brilliantly for getting those extra drops. Now, the fourth and final frame that I would recommend is going to be Atlas. Now, Atlas is not a bad frame, and that's not why I'm saying he's last. But there are a couple complications with Atlas that you need to be aware of. First of which, again, you're going to need a syndicate augment, this time called Orgaze. And this is going to give you a 25% drop chance on petrified enemies. So the first complication here is you are going to need a syndicate augment. The second complication is the drop chance is pretty low at only 25%. And the third complication of what you must be aware of is an enemy must be petrified. Meaning, if you petrify them, they come out of that petrify, then you drop that enemy, you're not going to have that potential extra drop. Okay? So that's the other complication. Now, what Atlas lacks in percentage of drop chance, he makes up for being able to kind of put the map on pause, which is brilliant. I mean, it's absolutely great with Oxium Ospreys, because we've all been in that situation where you're trying to reload a weapon, you've done some damage to an Oxium Osprey, and it charges you in self-destruction, you get no Oxium from it. But that's what makes Atlas so brilliant here, is he can kind of pause the area and say, oop, hold up, let's put this area on pause, let's petrify this area, reload my weapons, and then we can resume. So he's absolutely brilliant at being able to kind of lock down those Oxium Ospreys, buying you and your teammates, whether you're running solo or with the team, buying you guys time to actually deal with those Oxium Ospreys really quickly. Now, as far as weapon loadouts go, pretty much any weapon that can deal with an Oxium Osprey in pretty quick order is going to be ideal in this situation. Now, I really do like the Archiplasm more, but there's something to be aware of with Necros's Desiccate, and that is that, Desecrate, and that is that the Archiplasm disintegrates enemy corpses, and if an enemy corpse is disintegrated, Necros's Desecration cannot work on it. Okay, so that's the downside to running the Archiplasm. So that's the first thing. That's the first location and the tips and tricks that I have there. The other thing is run those resource boosters. Those things are absolutely phenomenal. And they are absolutely phenomenal, guys. I mean, I don't recommend buying a lot in games, a lot of extras in games, unless you absolutely have to. But as with a lot of stuff in Warframe, these are absolutely brilliant. If you've got a stack and a half of weapons and companions and Archwings and Archwing weapons and Warframes that you have to level up, an Affinity Booster is brilliant. If you need to farm credits, Index with the credit booster is absolutely brilliant, and I'll be covering that in a future WDIF. But for today's WDIF, these resource boosters are phenomenal. And I was not running a resource booster when I soloed Galatea here just a few minutes ago, and I'll show you my results from that in a minute. But I did not have a resource booster active, and it would have doubled my drops. Now, I don't recommend the resource drop chance booster. I can tell you that DE has recently tweaked these. I don't know the full ramifications for it. I'm still researching it. But previously, the only thing that really the drop chance booster did, and there are some exceptions, but the majority of the time, the only thing the drop chance booster did was drop extra pigments. That's it. Now, if you don't know what those pigments are and you don't know what I'm talking about, then chances are you're either A, not in a clan, B, you're in a clan that's already researched the dojo color palette, or C, you haven't gotten to the point where you're building your own dojo yet. So resource drop chance boosters are pretty good at dropping those extra pigments for those hard to spawn enemies when we're talking like the Zanuka or the Grusdrag 3 or the Stalker. So they're great at that, but I don't recommend the resource drop chance booster as yet. Again, these 3-day resource boosters, the yellow ones, are absolutely phenomenal at doubling your drops. Now, the next location that I personally am going to recommend, and there are some complications to this, guys, and I'll go over that in a minute, but the next location that I recommend is going to be Cerberus. Now, Cerberus is a little higher level at level 30 to 40, and it is an interception. Okay, those are something to be aware of. But here's the complications of Cerberus. Because it is an interception mission, you're going to want to take a team. You're not going to want to solo this. At least most newer players are not going to want to solo this. The other complication that exists with Cerberus, and I don't know if it's just a glitch or if it was intentional by DE, I'm unaware at this point exactly what's going on, but for whatever reason, the Oxium Ospreys just don't seem to spawn that often in this particular location until you stay for a while. I actually soloed Cerberus one round of interception and actually got 0 Oxium. My next time I queued, I got actually one random and we ran 2 waves of this interception and we got 0 Oxium. But when I took a team in and stayed for 4 waves of interception, I ended up with, on average in our runs, I ended up with 100-ish to 300 Oxium, which pales in comparison, in my opinion, to Galatea, but it is an option if you get tired of running Galatea. Cerberus does exist, and that is still more than IO, in my opinion, at least from my personal experience. So my personal recommendation is still going to be Galatea. As far as team composition goes, I do recommend a Necros, a Hydroid, an Ibara, and finally an Atlas, with everyone trying to run Smeedy Kavats and get those resource boosters active. And you can generate a pretty good volume of Oxium Osprey from Cerberus, although in my opinion you can still generate more from Galatea with a team. Now, in my particular run on Galatea, which was solo and 20 minutes, well, more specifically 19 minutes 59 seconds, and I can tell you I did get the Smeedy Kavat buff at least twice, maybe a third time, and I generated 659 Oxium in a 20-minute run solo, and that was running the Amprix and the Maradotron on my Necros. So, and right at 20 minutes, solo, 659 Oxium. There you go. There's the results in case you're wondering what you can generate from Galatea. That's what it is. So hopefully this helped you guys out. Hopefully you guys have some information now on other options of Oxium farming, and leave some comments. Leave some comment sections on how. Leave some comments in the comments sections on how you personally make out on Galatea. Let me know what you're getting. Maybe we can kind of tweak your loadout and get you making absolute loads of Oxium. And let me know what you guys think. Until next time, guys. Peace and grease.